That's hunt.
Mm.
The early people, the Anunnaki, you can just see them sitting around in the lab one day saying, we need to make us something that'll get out there and hunt for us.
Mm.
Let's make something faster than anything else on the savannas.
Mm.
And that's what the cheetah is, way faster.
Wow.
And then they had the design problems to work out with the feet and the head. The head's very streamlined, and if you look at a cheetah running, it's got a balance mechanism so that its head stays straight as its body's doing. If you ever see slow motion films of cheetahs running to hunt, man, their bodies are flying all over the place, and those heads are like they're on gimbals. The head just stays steady; it doesn't lose track of what it's looking at. Cheetahs are fascinating animals. They really, really are. Because they are genetically engineered to be what they are.
Wow. So also in regards to, the seeds that we talked about earlier and some of the, the wheat and other that we use now and harvest, of course, have we been helped here then? This is like an experimentation going on here?
Well, at first, if you go by what the Sumerians wrote, we were created simply to be a slave force for the people who were here. There weren't that many of them. They were here, and they were living here, and they had set up a quasi-permanent base here, but they needed work done, and they needed hands and brains to do that, and they didn't want to do it. So they created a slave and a servant, which is what we human beings were. We were created to be a slave and a servant. Now, they had to give, in order for them to be able to mate with us and use us for recreation as well, they needed to make us a lot like them physically, which we are. And one of the things they had to do was give us their brain. Now, their brain obviously is fairly supercharged relative to ours. Because of, who they are and what they are. And if you're making a slave and a servant, you don't want it to be nearly as smart as you are.
True, right. Yeah, that's right.
So what you have to do is you have to limit the access of the slave and the servant to the whole brain, and you only give them a small part of the brain to work with. And everybody's heard that we only use about 10% of what we have, but there's a lot of argument about that because it looks like we use all portions of our brain at various times.
But not at the same time.
I'm a firm believer that we don't use all that's in our heads because I believe what are called savants, what used to be called idiot savants and what are now called savants, but savants show clearly, there's over 100 of these people that have been recorded and followed. I believe that these people show clearly that in the damage to the fully functional normal part of their brain, there is somehow a tear in the partition that is in my head and your head and the heads of normal people. There is a tear in that partition that allows a savant to see into the forbidden part of the brain, to access and utilize the forbidden part of the Anunnaki brain. And that's why they have these phenomenal talents like Rain Man. We've all seen what savants can do. And the feats that they can accomplish are so incredibly beyond what normal humans can do that if that part is available to them, if that part of their brain is available to them, that part of the brain would be available to us if we knew how to drop the partition that the Anunnaki put in our heads so that we would be smart enough to follow instructions and do what they told us to do, but we would never be smart enough to get together and gang up on them and cause them any trouble. And I believe that's how we were created, to be strong but not too strong and smart but not too smart, so we would never create a real problem for them while they were here and while they were our lords and masters.
Wow. And, I can't resist to ask the question, considering what you said about the, the similarity then potentially between humans and the Anunnaki. Could there be some still around today? What's going on there?
Well, there could, but one of the things that they say in the writings is that the Anunnaki have a kind of a glow about themselves, a kind of a physical aura that you could see, that you knew immediately when you were in the presence of a god, and that's what they were called, the gods, but with a small g rather than God as we, where did the term God come from? It comes from the Adamu called the Anunnaki their gods. That was, Lord and Master, that was the term God with a small g. So they knew instantly when they were looking at one because they had like a glow around them that they can see. And I would argue that when Anunnaki were seen later in time, that's where the thing about halos came from, angels of the Lord or angels or whatever.
Yeah.
The people who saw them later were looking at Anunnaki and they were saying they had this glow around their head.
Sure.
And that's what they were. So I think they couldn't walk around in everyday society necessarily right now because we'd see the glow if it was the real, true 100% Anunnaki. But can hybrids be out there? I suppose they can. But I don't really know. It's just speculation on my part. I do not know.
Yeah, me neither. And this, to me at least, connects very much with the story, of course, of the Nephilim, the biblical story, which sometimes are referred to as the shining ones,
Right, exactly.
So
it's shining ones.
It's right there, and it seems to be kind of crossing all kinds of different cultures and mythologies about these beings, the gods, as you say, that were down here, and
Exactly. I think there's no doubt that they were here, that they did do what the Sumerians say they did, and they did it in other cultures as well. I think they are the source of all the major cultures, the culture of India, the culture of the cultures of the Americas. All of the early cultures, I think, were created and governed and ruled by shining ones, by Kukulkan and in the Americas, and just all of them. And when they finally left, as they seem to have done, they left. They just turned the keys to the store over to us, or you might say they turned the keys to the asylum over to the inmates. I don't, however you want to put it, but that's what seems to have happened.
Fascinating. And we're beginning to run out of time here for this first segment, but I would love to continue here talking about, of course, the Star Child skull, and if there is a connection, what you have found between these two areas, as it were, and I would love to dive into all of this because it's fascinating and that there's so much more information here. But before we
certainly the Star Child skull is worth hearing about because that is history in the making.
Definitely, and the potential of that there is some evidence for genetic experimentation there also, of course, and lots of that stuff. But before we end off this segment, you did mention one of your books that they were currently out of print. Everything You Know Is Wrong: Origins of Life and Humans. But you also have a new one out there. Tell people about your new book and when your first book will be out again, and of course how people can get them also.
Right. Well, the new book that is out and available now, and it will be available, I think, in Sweden as well, through your bookstores, local bookstores, and Amazon. Although it won't be in Swedish, it'll be in English, unfortunately. But maybe we'll get it translated in the not too distant future, maybe next year sometime. It's called The Star Child Skull. The Star Child Skull. Genetic, and the subtitle is Genetic Enigma or Human Alien Hybrid. And that is available now through Bell Lab. If you want to get a hardback, personally signed by me hardback, you can get it through Bell Lap Books. That is www.bell, then the word LAP, and then books, BOOKS. So it's BELLLAPBOOKS, belllapbooks.com. And if you want to get a paperback, you can also get that as well. It's less expensive And if you want to order it there from Amazon or any of your bookstores there, you can do that probably in the next week or so. The paperback is just now becoming available to be printed overseas in a factory in London. So we're trying to make it available as widely as we can in Europe, and like I said, it should be next week if everything goes right.
Yeah.
So it's pretty exciting for us, and it'll be easy for people to pick it up that way. However, if, again, you want the hardback, you can go through Bell Lap Books, and we'll send one to you. You do have to pay, though, for international shipping, which is like $11.
Yeah.
So you got to consider the cost of it, but it's a very good book. And the hardback, of course, has the color pictures that the paperback does not. The hardback has 40 color photos in it that the paperback will not have. But those same color pictures are available on the website, www.starchildproject.com. Starchild, StarChildProject, starchildproject.com. So you can see the pictures there if you get the paperback. The photos are in black and white. I mean, you see them clearly in black and white, but there's really nothing quite like color for the ones that are reproduced in color in the hardback.
That's right. And also check out, of course, Lloyd Pye. That's LLOYD and PYE, LloydPye.com. And we will continue now in the next segment for our subscribers. But for this segment, Lloyd, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning into the program. We will continue speaking with Lloyd for our subscribers now, and we are going to talk about the fascinating Starchild skull, and we'll get deeper into the question if this is evidence for a human-alien hybrid. Fascinating material coming up for our subscribers. Thanks to producer Fredrik Palmgren behind the controls. This is Henrik Palmgren, and we will be back on Sunday with our regular guest Alan Watt. Until then, take good care. We'll talk soon.
Didn't know what time it was, the lights were low. I leaned back on my radio. Some cat was laying down some rock and roll, that is all he said. Then the loud sound, it seemed to fade. Came back like a slow voice on a wave of bass. That weren't no DJ, that was hazy. There's a starman waiting in the sky. He'd like to come and meet us, but he thinks he'd blow our minds. There's a starman waiting in the sky. He's told us not to blow it, 'cause he knows it's all worthwhile. He's home. Let the children lose it. Let the children use it. Let all the children do get it. Switch on the TV, we may pick him up on channel 2. Look out your window.